Hello and welcome everyone and all to what is now the rebranded, I believe, Iron Tier, which, of course, just using the name of the, like, what you call it, in-server, um, chat thing, or whatever you want to call it, channels that been rebranded. So, anyway, welcome to, obviously, the Iron Tier, which is formerly known as, I suppose, Tier 1, ultimately in the end. But nonetheless, so new changes for this upcoming season. I believe that we are now just a PS only league. We've still got pretty much almost our identical grid to the large part of last season. But nonetheless, given that there is that familiarity, I think that's probably pronounced that wrong, but you get the gist of the idea. Um, ultimately, very similar drivers. There are, I think, one or two new people on the grid, like a Shippo's Legend, or Shippolis Legend, or ship. I'll just put Legend. So there is the new edition of Legend here. Obviously, who's racing tonight. Other than that, most people, um, are pretty familiar. So yeah, there is that familiar. I can't even speak tonight. Um, there is that sense of continuity. Can pronounce that word fine. Um, so yeah, should be a good season, hopefully. Um, and given that we begin like real life in Bahrain, of course, Bahrain, one of them circuits where it's probably a great place to get racing underway to start a season, especially when begin a new season. It's just one of them circuits that it's not too difficult for people to learn. It's not also too easy. So you do sometimes get a bit of a pecking order. You can sort of work out where people are going to be throughout the season overall. So it's just a really nice venue, Bahrain, in that regard. However, we will have to wait and see what goes down tonight during this race in ERL. So I think the drivers are about to begin now, and we're about to get underway. So, of course, Bahrain in real life, I believe, use the C3, C2s, and C1s. Um, so I'm not sure whether they use the same compound in the games. Um, or whether it's just literally soft, medium, hards, but ultimately I don't think it's the softest range. I kind of do wish we went back to the rainbow colour of tyres, where you had the hyper softs, ultra softs. Those were the good old days of Pirelli compound or tyres, I thought, personally speaking. Now with I know it's simpler for people to remember, just red, yellow, white. Um, Makes things a lot more clearer, but personally, I'm not a very clear person, and I prefer a bit more complexity, when it comes to the tyre colours. But anyway, who is going to be the first one to break the silence and to go out onto the track? I think it might be one of the Red Bulls here then, and we'll get up some important information. Nope, it's actually an Aston Martin. And it is the Aston Martin of the Spin King himself, Charlie Harris, then. And last season, he was one of the drivers that probably could have been in the championship fight, but obviously fell a little bit short in terms of, well, when it came down to it in the end. Of course, Appledorn is still here, same with Neil, so these drivers certainly going to be a couple of drivers to watch out for this season, I suspect, once again. Appledorn also fell just short at the final hurdle. Yeah, he almost did go on to win last season's championship, just in the end didn't manage to do it, and in the end that probably a bit of, well, this season might be a season where he might try to aim to bounce back from last season. Well, not last year, just from last season. But it does feel like a bit of a time ago now, last season, I suppose, where Stewart did win his championship, which can't deny was very impressive. Anyway, here we go then, on board with the Aston Martin driver to begin a lap then of the Bahrain International Circuit, and down towards then turn 1. Obviously is a bit of a hairpin, this is, and takes a bit of a wide line through there, in my opinion. Doesn't really take the tighter line, but takes a bit more of a Verstappen-esque line, I suppose. Anyway, into turn 4. Keeps it within the track limits, not really pushing those track limits at the moment. Charlie, I wouldn't say, isn't, and a 29.1 for the first sector, so pretty competitive first sector. Down the hill into the heavy braking zone of turn 8 before shooting back up towards turn number 9, then into the downhill section for turn 10. Very easy to lock up a tyre there, especially the front left, and that was pretty neat by Charlie Harris. Maybe could have carried a bit more speed on the exit. Anyway, into 11. Up the hill then for turn 12 and 13. Flat out. These corners pretty much irrelevant on the lap. Then into turn 14. And is going to come around now the final corner, well, final 2 corners of turns 15 and 16, even though you do treat this as just one corner, but then out of the final corner, and is going to cross the line, and it's a 1:30.0, so that's the time they've all got to go and chase now for this Grand Prix. Einkid comes across the line, he goes P2 momentarily before Lucky Egg displaces him, so good lap. What is Appledorn doing? Let's have a look. Well, obviously he can do. Missed down the championship just by a single point. It was, I think, last season in the end. Man's Not Bob goes to the top of the times. What can the Red Bull driver do here tonight, though? Goes purple through the middle sector, so that is a very good middle sector from Appledorn already, showing why he was one of the championship contenders then, I suppose, here already towards the back end of last season. And is he going to put his mark, his stamp down for the beginning of this season? The answer to that is firmly yes. Goes 3/10 clear, and we're on to the 29.6s then. So next up is going to be Robbo, and Robbo, of course, haven't seen much of him race in all fairness. Maybe we'll see a bit more of him this season. And good first sector, actually. So I think he's certainly in the hunt for at least the top 2. Anyway, down the hill towards turn 10. Missed the apex ever so slightly for Robbo there. But anyway, nonetheless, towards turn 11, he will plough on and into 11. Hits that apex beautifully. Takes a very tight line though, not using all the track. Keeping the car certainly well within those track boundaries, and still got the pace though, 7.8 for the middle sector. So this is certainly a good lap coming together for Robbo. Where will he put his Ferrari car? Of course, Ferrari and Red Bull did qualify 1 and 2 in Bahrain in real life. So is it going to be a 1-2 for Ferrari here in the game? Not quite, but is certainly within the region of being on the front row. Right now, it's Appledorn, Man's Not Bob, currently occupying the front row. How about FCS and Shade, the other Ferrari driver? And he's about to round the final corner now and coming towards the line and goes to P12. Currently just over a second off the pole time at the moment. So who is next across the line? I believe it will be then... is that Tom? Yeah, it is Tom. Tom, who is next. So, yeah, Tom coming down then the hill towards 8 then. Unfortunately, corners around Bahrain, I don't think have many names to them. If they do, someone can correct me on that, but sadly, it is one of them tracks where, you know, every corner is pretty much called turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, unfortunately. No real corner names like you'd have at Silverstone, Monaco, or some other places that you obviously see on the calendar. So through the middle sector. Good middle sector, actually. So certainly in the hunt to go P2 at the moment. Is about 10th up for now. And that... well, 7-7 should put him roughly in that P2 territory. So where is this lap going to put? Then Tom is exactly P2. So there we go. Just about a couple of tenths shy of where, well, Appledorm is, who currently is your provisional pole sitter for now. 10 minutes still remain, though, in the qualifying session. So certainly plenty time for things to change. Just gonna try and get rid of that. There we go. And then do that. So I don't know whether that makes it a bit better. So you can just see the gaps momentarily. So currently 2.5 seconds split in the field between then the slowest of LLC and then it's Lange at the back there. So about 2 seconds then. But then it's only a second back to FCS and Shade. So only a second between the top 16 then here at the moment. Only Neil is yet to set his lap. So we'll have to wait and see what he can do. But that is the current gaps between all the drivers. So just about a second between 16th and what is right now then first place in this qualifying session. So Mufasa about to begin his lap then here, and Ralphie is currently trying to give him a bit of a tow down then the main straight, trying to do what Oscar Piastri unintentionally did to Max Verstappen in qualifying, but obviously this looked a bit more pre-planned by the William pairing here then. So up then towards turn 4, and Mufasa currently sits 15th, so he is going to be looking to improve up the order, currently finding a 10th for the first sector, so maybe that tow definitely helping out Mufasa there, gaining some of that time. Charlie Harris now goes to the top of the times. We ride on board with Mufasa. Bit wide into turn 10, but still got the car eventually slowed down and managed to rotate the car eventually, but now going up the hill towards turn 12 into then 13, and is actually finding a huge amount of time, found almost a second there. So this is a massive improvement from Mufasa coming along here in this lap, and only got one more corner really to negotiate. So 1 second would certainly put him right in the top 4 positions. And in fact, he's going to go on to provisional pole. So Mufasa is on provisional pole in this Bahrain Grand Prix. That, well, where has that pace come from? That has absolutely shocked me. It's blown me away out the water. That has. Because I was not expecting Mufasa from 16th to get provisional pole here at the moment. But he is on provisional pole. Wow, that is an absolutely fantastic lap from Mufasa then. So, yeah, that is a absolutely incredible lap. But, of course, does have fast drivers behind him of Dan as well, who's on a lap now. So up the hill then for Dan. And is 3/10 up through then the middle sector. So he's finding a lot of time as well. So obviously this probably indicates that the track has ramped up, and therefore that rubber that the driver's been putting down has led to the track evolution towards the end of this qualifying. So we could see some very big improvements if we're seeing a second from Mufasa, and we've already seen now another 5/10 improvement from Dan. So that sees now Dan onto the provisional pole spot. So Top Car Flogger is next, finds a 10th through the first sector at least. How is he going to get on during the middle sector? This is the sector seemingly the drivers are finding the time at the moment. Right now, Dan found about half a second. Obviously, Mufasa found about 9/10 of a second through his middle sector. What can Top Car Flogger find? I'm not actually sure if he's on a flying lap here, but because he's not got much battery and he's 4/10 down. So that answers that question. So first sector pretty decent for Man's Not Bob then. What can he do in the middle sector? This is the sector where obviously Mufasa found all his time. So can Man's Not Bob find more time then? And currently a 10th up, so decent improvement through the middle. If he can find more through this final sector, probably the hardest sector to find the time, he could have a chance of moving up a few positions here. So let's see what he does as he'll cross the line now. And does the 29.5. A bit disappointing from Man's Not Bob there, but does move up at least into 4th. But that might just be the end of his qualifying though, as there's only 3 minutes and 40 remaining. I don't think he's going to be able to get out again. So right now, it is Dan on pole. Mufasa joining him on the front row. Iron Kid isn't improving on this lap. So what about Ralphie? Currently finds a 10th through the first sector himself. So that's a very nice improvement from him. Could we see him maybe move up the order a bit? Obviously his teammate found a whopping 1 second improvement. In fact, 1.2 seconds Mufasa found. So can Ralphie find something of similar nature? That's the, I suppose, big question. Right now he is finding something of similar nature. He's found about another half second, so he's now almost 8/10 up. So this, well, the two Williams are really flying here tonight in Bahrain. And around the final corner for Ralphie, we know he was brilliant in China in that final race of the season, and jumps up the order to displace his teammate from the front row of the grid and moves himself about half a second clear. But Mufasa is on an outlap, and ultimately that should be not taken lightly, considering Mufasa found 1.2 seconds now. That really, well, he's a real candidate for maybe pole position tonight. we'll have to wait and see. Don't want to hype him up too much in case, you know, ends up being put down to 10th or something. You just never know, but I would like to say he's in the hunt for pole position right now. Of course, I would say Appledorm is the favourite to take pole. Anyway, here comes Brian. So across the line, Brian will come and does move up the order to 15th. So that sees him onto a 30.1, and that'll be his final run. So Lange doesn't look like he's on a fast lap. How about LCC? Isn't on a fast lap either, 3 seconds down. Ralphie, we know, has completed his lap. So who is next on a lap? Is it Neil? It is Neil. So let's see what Neil can do. Found 2/10 for the first sector. So up the hill towards turn 8. Into 9. Down into 10. Bit wide of the apex there, I would say. But still got the car rotated just about. So this isn't necessarily a bad lap either. Let's see what he can do for the middle sector. Ultimately, this middle sector probably is the most important sector of the lap and is 3/10 up. So this would see him right now move into the 29.5s, just ahead of where Man's Not Bob is, who is apparently on an out lap, but I don't think he's got enough time to do a lap in the end. Right now, I think he's gonna, unfortunately, not make it around, so that'll be the end of his night. But Neil goes P3 then here. The only trouble is with Man's Not Bob being now out, he'll be in AI mode. I do hope no one accidentally catches him, like his teammate, who is absolutely coming onto him like a rocket ship. But thank goodness, I suppose, his teammate is not at the moment on a hot lap, really. So Appledorm only 83 thousandths for the first sector. Then let's see where the improvements are. So not improvement for Dan. Neil, we know, has done his lap. Not sure what Mafasa's first sector is, but let's see what Charlie Harris is doing, because Charlie Harris is about a 10.5 up through then the middle sector. So this is certainly a good improvement for Charlie. So currently on a 24.4 then here from Charlie, and is about to cross the line any second now. Crosses the line, goes P2, but misses out on pole position. So Charlie Harris is not going to be on pole. Appledorm is about 10th up, but isn't really finding enough to join either Charlie or Dan on the front row, or even in the top 3 at the moment. So this can't be really considered a good lap by Appledorm, and in the end does recover a bit in that final sector to go then P4. But what is Mafasa doing? Well, Mafasa isn't on a hot lap. Unfortunately, it looked like his lap ended in the middle sector. So there we go. Dan is your first pole position sitter for then today's race. And I actually forgot Dan was actually one of also the other championship contenders last season. But Dan takes the first blood of the season, and he is then your pole sitter for today. Car number 7, Kimi Raikkonen's number, of course. And that is the Alpine on the front row, not the last row. So, Dan takes the first pole position for the season, then followed by Charlie Harris, Ralphie in 3rd, Appledorm 4th, Neil in 5th, Mafasa in 6th. A surprise, good result for Williams, I suppose, there. White Elliott in 7th, Man's Not Bob in 8th. Very good result for the Mercedes pair. Then it's 9th for Ironcud and Robbo in 10th. Tom in 11th, then It's Top Car Flogger in 12th, Lucky Egg 13th, Morgan 14th, FCS and Shade in 15th. Then it's Brian in 16th. 17th is Legend, then 18th is Lange, then LCC. Rounds up the back of the grid in P19. And we will now move into what will be a 29 lap 50% race, of course. And hopefully a very exciting Bahrain Grand Prix, unlike real life, which I don't think was the most special Grand Prix over the weekend, if I'm being brutally honest. I would probably give it a 9 out of 10 if I'm rating it from my Red Bull fandom point of view, but if I'm rating it from just a neutral perspective, I'd probably give it about a 4 out of 10 or something. It weren't the most thrilling Grand Prix you'd ever see, but hopefully we can give this Grand Prix or this ERL race a lot higher of a rating. Maybe, well, I don't know, what are we aiming for? An 8 out of 10, a 9 out of 10, I suppose, like from the neutral perspective. Because that is literally what we'd like to see. Good racing throughout, and good racing from the start of the Grand Prix to the end of the Grand Prix, and we're about to start the Grand Prix now. It's 5 red lights on for then the beginning of this season, and it's lights out, and away we go then. And there's a big crash at the back of the grid there. It's Mufasa and Lange then having a bit of contact, I believe it was. Not sure who went into who, but that is not the perfect way to start your season. But for Dandan, he's got off the grid well, and he's leading then the pack away, and he's already bridging himself out a huge 8/10, 9/10 gap already, and we've not even completed the first sector. So he's decided he wants to become the Max Verstappen of the tier so far during this, well, not even first sector of the Grand Prix race. And Ralphie then P2, who's actually got away well too. So we're not even a lap in, and we've already got a 1.1 second gap for then Dandan. Then comes Appledorn, then it's Neil, then Charlie Harris right now under a bit of pressure from Man's Not Bob, who right now is in, well, made up, I think, a position there. Pretty sure he started 7th and is now up into 6th right now, putting maybe the Aston Martin under just a bit of pressure. Then not sure if he got caught out in a bit of contact at the start there. A few cars did at least. Certainly one of the Aston Martins, certainly I think of Lange, took a bit of a hit. And we'll have to see what goes on with that. But right now, Man's Not Bob is right now looking like the closest out of the top 6 to being the first driver to make a pass. As we see a few cars dart off into the pits. Certainly a Hasvet of Tom and Ironkid coming in. I think these two might have got caught up in that first lap incident at the start. But as we head on to lap 2 then. So Dandan's already got a 1.6 second advantage. He's already broken the DRS. And that is a very key thing to state, because obviously as he's broken the DRS, therefore, you know, those cars behind him will not benefit from that. And they will have to work to get back within that DRS, therefore using up maybe a bit more battery or a bit more tyre, one or the other. Nonetheless, right now Appledorn looking to maybe try and make a pass, obviously representing the Red Bull F1 team he is, and he's got Ralphie right in his sights. 2/10 he is following. DRS will be enabled next lap. So up the hill towards turn 13. You can see that Red Bull following closely like a shark, swimming in water, I suppose. And you just know, as soon as you get, well, literally in real life, a Red Bull car in your mirrors, it's game over. Obviously, when you get Appledorn in your mirrors, it might be game over as well. And it is game over for Ralphie in terms of for now, because he's about to lose P2. He tries tucked back into the slipstream. Can he maybe try and get a move done on the brakes or come back on the brakes? The answer to that is no, but he is now down to P3. And if he can maybe just maintain the gap to Appledorn, that might help him out in defending this position against Neil, who's trying to get up and defend from Charlie. So lap then 3 of the race. Charlie Harris right now is 5th, and he looks like he could be moving himself up very shortly. So right now, this is a bit of a DRS train though, what we've got going on. Right now the gap out front is 2.6 seconds between all the cars. So given it's 2.6 seconds, it's now crept up to 2.7. Dan's got a very comfortable lead in these opening 3 laps. A very, very comfortable lead, to say the least. Ralphie actually has brought himself a bit more back into the range where you'd want to be if you've got the DRS. So Appledorm doing a little bit of weaving down the straight to try and break the toe. Not sure it's going to be enough. We'll have to see as they get to the breaking point of turn 1. In the end, Appledorm almost getting rear-ended by Ralphie. Then there, Ralphie comes back up the inside, and Ralphie in the end with a broken front wing as well will have certainly a little bit more straight line advantage, but through the corners he is going to suffer, and surely with that amount of damage he is going to have to come back into, well, going to have to come into the pits. So this has not been a great start for the Williams team. Brilliant qualifying, but catastrophic race. Well, first 4 laps of the season overall. It's not the end for them, but it's certainly not the way these two, Ralphie and Mafasa, would have liked to begin their season and, well, I suppose their collective title charge, as we're seeing Charlie Harris try and make a move on Neil for P3 up the inside. All of this has also allowed Appledorm to be relieved a bit of pressure then here, and he's also allowed like the gaps to open up, which ultimately kind of breaks up the DRS train a bit then, and therefore with that DRS train broken up, just allows everyone else to, well, go for overtakes that they thought weren't possible a lap ago. So I think we might see Charlie Harris make up a move. He's going for it down the inside, got the inside line for the corner, but we'll have the DRS for the second straight as well, I believe. In fact, they both got the DRS, so that should just cancel one another out. And with that DRS, Neil able to defend that from Charlie. Robbo, right now, P6. I will say he's made up a lot of positions. FCS and Shade up to 9th. Doing a very marvellous job not getting into the incidents. Of course, those incidents probably helping him out a bit, but ultimately he's kept it clean out there and so far already been rewarded for that, up into 9th place. 9th position so far. So lap then, well, lap 5 of the race, 3.5 seconds then for the race leader of Dan, who currently is leading the way. We'll get up the tyre graphics so we know what tyre and strategy everyone's on. Really, this race is a simple one stop. It shouldn't be anything more than that unless we get a few safety cars. Right now, surprisingly, we haven't got any, despite there have been a few incidents. So whether or not we will get one today is going to be another question. Anyway, Charlie Harris going for it again, down the inside this time. He's a lot more long side than the Alfa Romeo driver, and this time he's able, as they get to the exit of turn 2, to put his car a nose length in front and get ahead of then the Alfa Romeo driver, and Neil down now, demoted into P4. But this obviously does allow a bit of a gap to sort of be enabled then between everyone. So, yeah, I'm going to get up just a gap to the leader there. That's what I needed. So, now it will be nil with the DRS, of course. Right now, no DRS for then Charlie Harris, who right now is about just over a second behind then the Red Bull of Appledorn. But for Charlie Harris, now he's in the front. He's kind of got to build that gap and try and bridge that gap down to Appledorn, who currently holds about 1.1 second advantage over this little group of cars, over Charlie Harris, Neil and Appledorn. Not going to be easy, but with the DRS again, I think we might see positions being traded. Right now, also not much ERS for this group of cars here right now, which is another factor I think should be taken into account and play, because with not much ERS, neither driver will have an advantage significantly to either attack or defend. Therefore, it's just going to be very much reliant on the DRS more than anything else. Ralphie goes quickest with now the fastest lap of the race, however, is a long way behind right now your race leader, 37 seconds off the pace, with Mafasa also 22 seconds off the pace at the moment. Also, Lange and LC also quite far behind this leading pack. Of course, these drivers did make unscheduled and forced stops. A lot of them did. Whereas the drivers that have the healthy leads and currently inside the top 11 haven't made a stop yet and haven't had any damage to their cars. But Neil, right now, has fallen a little bit away from Charlie Harris on this lap, and it's Charlie Harris now able to get the lead potentially here from Appledorn, take P2 away from then the Red Bull driver. Again, ain't got no ERS, but does have the DRS to help him. And as we get to then the braking zone or turn 1, Charlie Harris is ahead. Charlie Harris, though, did go deep, and this is going to allow then, I believe, Appledorn a chance to retake then that P2 off then the Aston Martin. But here comes Neil looking at going down the inside in the end. All three of them just played it sensible. Appledorn backed out, Neil backed out, and Charlie Harris then up in P2, making another move stick there for today. But this again allowing then Dan to breathe out another second advantage, and he's now got a 5-second lead, which is fairly crushing to the opposition right now, as his race is literally become the Max Verstappen of the show tonight so far. He's done so far fantastically well in the lead there. Right now, probably could be watching some of these battles on the big screen, I suppose he could be right now, Dan. Just checking out what the action is behind him. Obviously, you can't watch it on the big screen, unless in real life, but yeah. Nonetheless, so, can Appledorn get back even at then Charlie Harris? He's got the DRS, so has Nils, so has Man's Not Bob. And in the end, that's going to be a no. But we might see a move actually coming up for then what looks like 8th place. And I'm not sure why Morgan hasn't opened his DRS. Should have been within the DRS activation, unless he made a mistake. But that sees FCS and Shade up now to 8th and ahead of the Alpine. And that will be very much welcomed. And this group of cars catching Top Car Flogger, who hasn't really looked fast in the last, well, half a lap at least I've watched so far of this battle. But Top Car Flogger currently occupying 7th, being caught by the Ferrari of FCS and Shade. And can Ferrari make it then 6th and 7th here? That would be a very highly welcomed positional swap between these drivers. Right now, Ship Legend is then up into ninth. He is. Morgan is 10th, so Legend has made up quite a number of positional gains too. Started pretty far back, but then again, these are drivers that haven't actually been in any sort of incidents, so they are just reaping the rewards of what has been earlier sowed by others. So, can FCS and Shade get another position? He's certainly closing with that DRS. The battle out front still pretty much the same story. Dan leads. Appledorn is in third. Charlie Harris second. Man's Not Bob has found a way past Neil now for fourth, but has got obviously Appledorn right now as a bit of a roadblock. So lap then 10, we're probably getting close to the medium runners pit stops very, very shortly. And Appledorn is on hards, therefore this might explain why he's a little bit slower than the medium runners at the moment. We'll have to wait and see when those hards start to become effective and when the mediums start to fall off the cliff a little bit. Right now, seems like medium is holding up rather well. Doesn't seem like they are falling off or away from any medium runner car at the moment that badly, but we are watching right now the battle for 7th then here. And of course, this could see FCS and Shade take the place, as I believe that was Morgan into the pits, and it is Morgan who's come in. Brian choose to stay out, and right now he will just remain on those mediums for a little longer. Morgan goes on to a set of the hards. However, we've got really two sort of groups here. We've got the front runners. Well, we've got 3 groups actually. We got the no man's land drivers, as in the drivers that are sort of not really troubled by anything, and that's obviously Dan and Robbo. These are the sort of drivers that are not troubled by anything. However, having just said that, there's a safety car. So there we go, safety car deployed, and this is probably brilliant timing for the medium runners, as they can now just put on a new set of hards. And okay, not ideal for Dan, because obviously his lead is now nullified. But for the likes of Charlie, for the likes of others, yeah, everyone can go onto the hards. Even though I say it's not ideal for Dan, he can go onto the hards, and if he's got the pace, he'll just pull away again. It's pretty simple as that. But for the hard runners, this isn't ideal. For the 2 Williams though, this has reignited their race, and for the drivers especially a long way behind. But yeah, with the first safety car, obviously first round of stops, and maybe the only round of stops, then as Lange picks up a drive-through for speeding on the safety car. Same with, I think, Morgan, do I dare say. So they'll have to serve that penalty once obviously the safety car comes in. But LCC has become the first DNF. So, we've still got 18 cars right now running in this race. Of course, there's still a fair distance to go. So we'll have to see what happens beyond, well, this safety car period. And obviously, as I've always said in racing, safety cars breed safety cars, meaning basically, well, usually when you get one safety car, a second safety car probability skyrockets up, and of course, safety car interventions always will cause another safety car interventions, and then it becomes a game of snakes and ladders, and it's all about ideally when you stop, does it go against you, does it go for you, and of course that can ultimately decide your race outcome. So, a relatively short actual safety car intervention, and we are about to go back then to the racing green. And it's Dandan's then restart. Let's see what he does. Can he build as big of a gap as he did on lap 1? That was the perfect way to, build a racing lead. And I think he's actually gone then out of the final corner. And has he built a good gap? In fact, yes, he has. And as we cross the line already, it's pretty much back up to a second then that gap is already. So didn't even have to wait that long to see it shoot up to that sort of range. Just crept back down to about 6 tenths, 7 tenths. But I believe by the time we get to the end of the next lap, that gap is already going to be back to where it was before in terms of the 1 second region and above. So we'll have to see. Charlie Harris is trying to keep up though with your race leader of Dandan, who right now is almighty around this Bahrain circuit. He is looking tonight. And if Charlie Harris can keep up just for the first 3 laps under the safety car or after the safety car, he will be able to keep within the DRS and get then that extra toe down the straight, and therefore a bit of extra straight line speed to defend against right now what is Appledorn, who currently sits third. Further back though, there's a bit of action going on here between FCS and Shade, and right now Legend on the inside. Can he get the move done into turn 11? The answer is yes, but then FCS and Shade is going to try and hang it around the outside. There's a bit of contact between the two. Legend almost skittled off the track, then rejoins a bit unsafely. Mafasa is caught up in all of this. Then FCS and Shade has fallen down the order a little bit. I'm not sure why that was, whether he had a bit more of a contact between other cars and drivers, potentially so, but it looks like he's backed off there a bit to maybe try and give back the positions that he might have felt that was a bit of an unfair positional game, but he's actually come into the pits for whatever reason. I presume this might be due to whatever damage he's got, and yes, does have a bit of front wing damage by the looks of it. However, nothing really visible there, but certainly would have been maybe enough, he felt, to warrant a stop. So that sees him plummet down the order then into P17. That's certainly not ideal for him, and will lose now also another position to Lange, so be down into 18th also. So yeah, a long way off. Lange also a long way off it as well, but back to the top then 3, and actually Charlie Harris has managed to hold on, or is just about keeping that car within a second. Of course, he is using up a lot of ERS at the moment at his expense, but Charlie Harris right now is trying to just keep within that second very desperately to try and get that DRS off then Dan, and maybe to try and help him remain there. But I feel like this is a bit of a waste from him using that ERS. It'd probably be better off not using ERS, but there is a yellow flag, and that is for Mafasa then, who's now down to 16th, and that certainly not ideal for him. But here comes Neil, trying to then ease move back on Man's Not Bob. He did have good pace in the first half of the stint, but just sort of like died out towards the latter end, and he's now past Man's Not Bob up into 4th. So Man's Not Bob is now down to 5th. Robbo keeping up a bit more this time on the hard, so seems like he's able just to keep there a little bit more. Of course, his teammate has pretty much plummeted to dead last, so for Robbo, it's important he can bring the car home here in 6th for Ferrari to get those crucial championship points. Right now, I don't think there's a single constructor having a great race out there at the moment. Alfa Romeo obviously are fighting with only one car tonight due to there being 19 drivers, but McLaren are 8th for now. Obviously Red Bull are currently sat 2nd and 13th. Alpine right now are 1st and 12th, so I suppose Red Bull and Alpine are having a very similar result in that regard. But yeah, Aston Martin, you know, currently 3rd and 17th. You sort of get in the picture, really, I suppose. No one really having a great fight or great moment out there at the moment, as then we're seeing a bit of a battle between the Red Bull and the Alpine, and also the Haas of Legend. Legend sort of lost a position then here. Also, by the looks of it, then the Alpine or Morgan might be able to make up the place. Morgan and Lucky Egg go side by side. Lucky Egg with the outside line, and Lucky Egg with the soft tyre is going to go through. But actually just realised he is on soft tyres. So therefore Lucky Egg is going to probably have to come in and do at least another pit stop here, because he won't be able to get those tyres to the end, even if he wanted to. I think that's a stretch too far, trying to even think of it. So yeah, that is a very overambitious race strategy, but you never know, might just have the pace to claw it back towards the end. Certainly is going to have a lot fresher tyres towards the end, but when does he make his stop to go and do that? That is, I suppose, the fundamental question. But these next laps might be very critical if he can just pull out maybe a few seconds of a lead. If he is going to pull that one off, he would need to do exactly that. Right now, Man's Not Bob under a bit of pressure here from then it is Robbo. I think Man's Not Bob is also lost the DRS on the car ahead of him, so Robbo is going to have DRS. Man's Not Bob isn't. Man's Not Bob also little short on the battery front. But Robbo isn't really short on the battery front. Robbo isn't short on the DRS front either. And as we get to turn 1, Robbo is ahead. Forces his rival not really out wide. Man's Not Bob tried to come back at him on the outside, but yeah, that was a bit futile in the end. And that is Man's Not Bob now down to P6 in this race. And Man's Not Bob has to then settle for that at the moment, which I'm sure right now he would have hated now, this safety car intervention. Probably wishing it never happened, because his race was going fairly well. He was looking very strong for a podium result, but now is fighting for 5th and 6th. So his race sort of been turned on its head at the moment, but the lead out front hasn't. Your leader is still Dan, who's got a 2.2 second lead, and so far he's been impeccable. Dan has absolutely flawless drive so far from him from the Alpine, but we'll have to still wait and see, because there is still a distance in this race to be ran, and you just never know, because it can just like that change in a heartbeat. With 10 laps to go, Man's Not Bob going round the outside on then Robbo. Robbo will have a DRS coming back up the hill for turn 4. Man's Not Bob squeezes then Robbo to the inside a bit, gives him the room though, and as we get to turn 4, it is Man's Not Bob ahead, and that is Man's Not Bob then back up into 6th. Robbo goes slightly deep through turn 5. Loses a little bit of time there to the back end of the Mercedes, and that in fact might have breached the DRS then for Man's Not Bob. And can that now just allow Man's Not Bob to go and chase down then Neil, who is about a second and a half up the road? So that is then his task. So Man's Not Bob right now 5th then after that move, as then this battle for P2 reignites. Did die down a little bit, but as we get on to lap 20, it's going to be Charlie Harris on those hard tyres, move himself back up into then P2 with Appledorm on the mediums, and therefore Appledorm losing the place. But with DRS, this will help Appledorm drag himself along. Now, if I was Appledorm, personally, I'd just try and drag myself along using Charlie Harris as a bit of a tow rope, and effectively, yeah, just use the Aston Martin just as a little bit of a little bit of a rope, and just let him tow you along there. Not fight Charlie. I think that is probably Appledorm's best and wisest move, and maybe see what comes of it come the end of the race, because with only 9 laps to go, the field is fairly bunched, and he's the only driver on the mediums at the moment, and therefore, given he's the only driver on the mediums, how long do those mediums last? Can he get them to the end of the race? It's going to be certainly a bit of a tricky one. It's not the easiest race strategy to go and do. The safety car did, unfortunately, not help him in any way, shape or form favourably for his race strategy. And it did help the earlier medium runners, because they could go on to the hards, and effectively they don't have to stop again. Nor does Appledorm, but the trouble is, Appledorm is on a tyre which isn't going to last as long in theory, and therefore is going to have a greater decline when it starts to fall off the cliff. And that's the challenge Appledorm faces is keeping them tyres alive all the way to the end. Not as big of a problem what Lucky Egg has got, his teammate, but it's still a problem nonetheless. That could affect Appledorn and his race outcome as we head on to lap 21 with only about 8.5 laps remaining now. So we are getting towards the business end of this race so far. Question is, how long can Lucky Egg hold out for? When will he make his stop? He's got to make it sooner rather than later, of course, for Lucky Egg. However, his rival, Morgan, who right now is probably the biggest rival for him, does have a bit of a penalty. So, yeah, I do wonder how much further can Lucky Egg go on that soft tyre. I imagine can't be surely that much further. But his pace is still relatively strong compared to those he's driving around. Not as if it's weak or anything. And I think we're about to see him dart off into the pits this lap. We are indeed. And he has now made his second stop of race. What tyres is he going to go for? Is it going to be another set of softs? You bet it is. And he is then going to try and obviously get those tyres to the end of the race, which probably is going to be doable. Tom also comes in for a set of softs plus a new front wing, so he must have broken that somewhere. But there is FCS and Shade coming back out now. Does the Red Bull driver get ahead of the Ferrari? The answer to that is yes, but he's going to be on the colder tyre, so this is still going to be a bit of a race going up into turn 4 potentially here. Obviously the Ferrari with a bit of DRS assistance as well, but as we do get to turn 4, the Red Bull remains ahead. And I think that's the last FCS and Shade is going to see of then the Red Bull there. And he is now going to have to deal with then FCS and, well, the Red Bull Lucky Egg race back off into the distance. But how far can Lucky Egg get back up into this Grand Prix? He's got quite a big gap to make up before he hits traffic again. So I suppose that can be a positive and a negative. Not really much for him to go and do in terms of fight, but still got a bit of a gap. And when he does get there, his tyres aren't going to be in prime condition. So we'll have to see and keep a close eye on that, as that gap probably will start to come down. Ralphie and then Elliot having a battle. Elliot, I think, got a DRS passed by Ralphie. Man's Not Bob got on wide here, and Man's Not Bob has made a big mistake there actually, because Robbo has gone through and yeah, is now been put under pressure by Top Car Flogger for P6 in this race. So Iron Kid, a bit wide there, taking a Charles Leclerc line. Obviously Charles went very wide there at the weekend a number of times. A lot of drivers actually did, but I think Charles was certainly the most notable one of the lot out of them all. So yeah, Iron Kid fancying, just seeing what that Leclerc line feels like, I suppose. But as we sort of get towards the end of this lap, Top Car Flogger could be passed. Then Man's Not Bob. He's got the DRS, makes excellent gains out of that final corner. He's closing on the Mercedes. He's alongside the Mercedes. He's past the Mercedes. And Man's Not Bob now down into P7. So also giving the AlphaTauri a little bit of a love tap just to say well done. As we'll go up the hill then towards turn 4. Man's Not Bob with the DRS. So can he return the favour as we head into 4? Bit more contact for good measure between the Mercedes and the AlphaTauri. But as we do get towards the exit of 4. It is Top Car Flogger ahead of then Man's Not Bob. As we see Morgan and Brian. Legend and Brian, the Haas versus the Alpha Tauri. Fight out then for P12. Brian goes off the track. Mafasa's going to go around the outside, is he? Turn 8, can he get the move done? We'll have the inside line for turn 9. So it will have to be completed into 9 and 10. And in the end is completed into 9 and 10. Mafasa up into 13th. So Brian down now to 14th. Legend up to 12th. So that'll be decent, I suppose, as Mafasa will look to try and make another pass here. Right now, though, these drivers are being caught. And Appledorm and Charlie battling out then for P2 and P3. And, right, as I said, that trick that obviously Appledorm was doing with the DRS keeping in the tow has worked really nicely. He's now got a 3-second gap and advantage to nil. So even if his tyres do fall off here in the last 4 laps, well, 4 or 3 laps, he obviously does have then now the gap where, you know, P3 in the end is a great result. So that has worked beautifully for the Red Bull driver of Appledorm to take P3 if he can. Don't want to jinx it, of course. So Brian and then Legend both finding out still for then P12 and 13th. By the looks of it, Mafasa has lost that 13th to then Brian again. And Brian therefore has discovered 13th. But they are being caught quite fairly quickly by Lucky Egg. Maybe not as quickly as what Lucky Egg would like. But there's only a 5-second gap now between themselves and Lucky Egg. So Lucky Egg is managing to claw back that time. So if Lucky Egg can get up to about 12th here, I think that'd be the best result he can get out of this one. With about 3 laps to go. Not many laps now remaining in this race. I think Morgan might have had a moment actually. Not entirely sure. We'll have to see. As Elliot gets the position off then Iron Kid. As Ralphie making up a position. Ralphie could get Man's Not Bob here actually, which would only add to Man's Not Bob's pain in all of this. There is actually a bit of a chance. But ultimately, we'll go back to the battle for 13th and 12th. That is the closest battle really we have on track for you at the moment. Other than that is a battle for, well, 9th and 8th, but Ralphie looks like he's got the better pace. I mean, you do have Appledorm and Charlie Harris, but I think really that's not much of a battle. I feel like Charlie Harris has got it under control, that one, and if anything, Appledorm probably is gonna, well, be using just that to try and keep up and keep Neil out of the DRS range. So lap 27 we begin. 3 laps to go then here in this first race of the season. 1 safety car intervention only, more than enough in the end, I suppose. Not the most dramatic race. Man's Not Bob's picked up a 3-second penalty, so that surely seals the deal for then Ralphie getting P7. Good recovery by him. But for then, obviously, other drivers, well, we're going to have to see. But Brian going down the inside here into turn 4. Got the inside line. It's Legend on the outside. Legend has now the inside line for the next part of the track. And Legend goes swooping around the outside and takes back then P12. But they all sort of came together then into then the exit of turn 6 or 7 as they head down the hill towards 8. They're all bunched up here. Lucky Egg has now caught them. He's on also soft, so I expect Lucky Egg can sort of go through these group of drivers fairly easily. We'll have to wait and see. So Lucky Egg got the ERS, got the tyre advantage. Can he get the move done? He's going to the inside on then Mufasa. Mufasa trying to hang it around the outside. Both give each other room. Both then not forcing one another wide or anything or off the track. But Lucky Egg with the DRS, with the ERS, with the better tyre, has then the position done. Lucky Egg then goes for it into turn 1. He's going to be ambitious, trying to get these moves done fairly quickly, because he knows that this could be important for his race if he gets the move done here. Tries to send it into turn 4. That was probably an unwise move to do, and he's only lost himself the position to Mufasa. And Neil and Robbo fighting then for what is P4. Robbo actually, you know, first half of this race was having a very quiet time in P6. Second half of this race is now starting to fight Robbo here. Robbo's fighting Neil, sorry, I should say, as we'll head on to the final lap then. Charlie Harris leads from Appledorn, but who is going to be fourth as we will cross the line? Neil has then is currently the track position, but here comes then Robbo, going to have the DRS for good measure, and is going to put that DRS to good effect, and is now going to take the position away from then Neil for fourth, and Neil down to fifth. But as we come back up the hill, Neil then defended to the inside from Robbo, and Neil tried to go around the outside, but in the end Neil couldn't get that move done, and that should be the battle for fourth probably over, unless Neil can come back at Charlie with about one more DRS zone to go. What about also Appledorn and Charlie? Talking of the pair, let's have a look then. Charlie Harris got a bit of ERS to use, also Appledorn got ERS to use, but I think Appledorn surely isn't going to be able to do it. Neil and Robbo, what about them two? They're not going to be able to do it. So one more straight to go then. Appledorn got a lot of ERS saved up. If he's going to do it, it has to be this straight. It's a now or never move. But for Dan, he won't worry what's going on behind him, because it's been a cruise today for himself. Dominates the Bahrain Grand Prix, dominates round 1 as Charlie Harris and Appledorn race to the line. It's Charlie Harris ahead of Appledorn, then it will be Robbo and Neil crossing the line in 4th and 5th. Come then Top Car Flogger, Man's Not Bob will take 7th on the track, but demoted down into 8th. Then in the order, Ralphie then crosses the line in 7th, Iron Kid 8th, Elliot in 10th, Morgan in 11th. Then it's going to be either Legend or Lucky Egg. Lucky Egg, though, I don't think he's going to do it. It is going to be a little bit of a race towards the line, but in the end, the Haas driver wins out, followed by Lucky Egg in 13th. 14th is Brian, 15th will be Tom. Then it's going to be Lange, quite a fair distance back in P16, but managing to finish the race overall. So Lange crosses the line now to take P16. Then it's going to be FCS and Shade, followed by then obviously Mufasa It will cross the line now. And that is the end of today's race for round 1, for tier 1, for the Iron tier. And that then sees Dan come out on top and kick his campaign off to an amazing start for this season then. And what will probably be the what will be, not probably be, what will be the final season on this F1 2023 game. And it's a win for the Alpine driver, showing Alpine what then winning looks like as he lifts that trophy then for the first time this season, and probably won't be the last if that's the performance he can keep up throughout the season overall. So, Dan takes a race victory from Charlie Harris in P2, Appledorn P3, Robbo 4th, then it is Neil in 5th. Then, outside the top 5, we have Top Car Flogger Ralphie in 7th, then it's Man's Not Bob 8th, and it is Iron Kid in 9th with Elliot down in 10th. Outside the top 10, then you have Morgan, then it's Legend, then Lucky Egg, Brian in 14th, Tom in 15th, Lange in 16th, then it's FCS and Shade in 17th, followed by Mufasa in 18th, and then the only retirement of today is LLC for McLaren. So, driver day, I'm going to give my driver day as a commentator to then. I'm going to say, I'm torn between Dan and Robbo. Robbo had a good recovery race actually, a little bit, or had a good second half of the race. But I think Dan overall, very comfortable drive, very mature drive, and very controlled and great pace. So I think I'm probably going to say Dan probably wins it for me overall. But other than that, see you then on, I presume it'll be Wednesday, I think, because I'm going to be doing Wednesday comms, I'm pretty sure, this season as well. So I'll see you then for another round around Bahrain. See you then for another race. Please subscribe, like the channel, and see you next time.